Well, here we go. Another new project. Just what I needed. Because I'm severely lacking any more projects. But this right here. This is a 1985 Formula MX. Well, according to what the interwebs tells me. And it's got some grunge. But it was my favorite price. $350. Now it may be missing a few pieces here and there, but it's way more solid than what I usually pick up. I mean, just look at that track. Holy smokes. An OEM belt. Now she's definitely a little bit barn fresh. I'm sure there's a couple of mouse nests that, you know, we're going to have to do some evictions on, but too bad for them. Into the shop once again. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor who makes this show possible. Beer.
Brought to you by beer.
Another derelict sled that we're trying to bring back to life. So we had to pull the windshield off because otherwise we were going to break it. I mean, overall, the sled's pretty complete. I mean, there's a couple missing pieces here and there, like the ignition switch, but it's nothing a little hot wiring can't handle. So this Formula MX, I keep wanting to say a Formula Plus, but this is not that. This is the minus, I don't know, 50 cc's or whatever, because the pluses had the 521 rotary valve in them, and this has the 467/470. But anyways, I'm not really familiar a whole lot with this era of sleds, mid-80s, you know. I'm kind of more familiar with the wedge chassis Polarises and things like that. However, there was some interesting history basically on how this sled came about. So back in like 81, I guess it was, around there, Ski-Doo came out with the MX 5500, which was their first, you know, foray into independent front suspension. And I had one of those, and I'm still, you know, trying to get the muscles rearranged in my back from it because it was heavy, and it kind of sucked. And I guess the Ski-Doo racers also agreed, because they started developing and getting into some newer, better independent, you know, front suspension technology. And they didn't actually offer a sled, I guess, for the 83, 84 seasons. They just had ones that were dedicated racers. They were a Formula MX Pro Stock, I guess it was. So in 1985, this was the first release to the consumer of you know, that evolution. Wow, a functioning hood support cable. And there is the rotary valve. And there seems to be no shortage of mouse residue. Well, can't get that open. We'll assume it's full. Jesus. I don't know who put all these caps on. At least this one opens. Oh yeah. I think that's antifreeze. Okay, one thing I really appreciate is that ducting on the hood to make them fancy hood scoops up there actually functional. Yeah, the steering works. And the motor rolls over. And the pull starter works. This thing's practically showroom condition. Pretty low mileage. Or is that kilometerage? Oh man, I'm telling you, she's high performance.
It's premium, dude.
So when I was picking this thing up, we were actually looking at it in the back of the truck, and the surprising thing is, like, how decent of a shape overall this thing is. I mean, it's dirty and, you know, it's probably got some mouse damage, but like, even the shafts on the shocks, you know, they're in good shape. So I mean, it might have sat out for a while at some point, or, you know, gotten a little bit of sun fade, but this thing's actually been really well taken care of for the majority of its life. Oh no, it's got a square shaft clutch. Those things are the stuff nightmares are made of. Those clutches are definitely going to need a Scotch-Brite restoration. Well, I'm going to hazard a guess and say that the carburetors probably need cleaned. So as we're going through things here, one of the most impressive things is the condition of the fuel lines and stuff. They're all still soft. I mean, how often does that happen on any sled that you've let sit for, 5 years, let alone who knows how long this thing has been, inactive. Definitely no chance that ethanol's been in this thing. I mean, you ain't going to have that happen today. And I mean, we're definitely reusing every fuel line we can. You got to save money to make money. So we got the pipe out of there. And the only thing that was coming out of there was some rancid old gas. So I'm guessing that the carbs were pretty gummed up and she was flooding out. Which is good. I mean, it's better than finding mice or, a bunch of rust in there. Jeez. They should have been charging rent for the amount of mice that have been in here. I wonder if that's off a moonshine jar. Alright, well, time to see what goodies we got here in the old tool bag. Maybe we'll find some money or, drug paraphernalia or who knows what you find. Well, I guess we don't need the zipper very much. Oh yeah, that's still good. Yeah, that's got to be perfect as well. We'll save that one. Let's see here. Ooh, it's a tool bag. Oh, look at that. Oh yeah. Hey, you got your full OEM toolkit there in case you got to do a trail side motor rebuild. Get some pull starter rope, and you got an old cassette tape. Well, we're gonna have to see what kind of mix that is. We had to dig into the archives to try and find a cassette player that works. Of course, we're out of batteries too. Maybe it's a hair metal mixtape.
We've been trying to reach you concerning your car's
I guess we might as well see what's in the gas tank. I mean, I kind of know it's already going to be bad, but well, at least there's not a whole lot left in there. So far, the worst part about this sled is this smell of mildew and mold that is just hanging on everything. And a lot of it was in the air box, but also a lot of it down in the bottom of the engine bay when I was scraping all that crud out of there. Man. So I was kind of wondering how recently these carburetors were off. Apparently they've been laying on their side for quite a while. Yeah, the throttle's seized up. Now the proper way to dislodge one of those carburetor slides is with a really big screwdriver. Trust me on this. Perfect. Now it's really wedged. I mean, you gotta make stuff worse before you can make it better. Oh yeah, we're back in business now. And you've seen this episode before. Tear the carbs apart and see what kind of grunge we can find. Oh yeah, she's got a bit of crud in it. And I also found out that the float level here is kind of frozen in the down position, so that would explain the flooding. I mean, well, there we go. Well, we fixed it. It definitely has the classic peeling powder coat. I mean, we're just going all out on this project. We're even topping off the chain case. Now, I gotta say, I'm impressed by this. There's grease fittings on the radius rod ends. And down at the spindles. I mean, all over the place. This is back when they made stuff serviceable. Just grease fittings everywhere. Time to see if this thing's got any fire. Oh man, that's a score. Brand new. Yep, looks like it. And heck, we don't even need that key, so there's some weight savings. So I'm trying to purge the old, tar out of the tank, and I'm not getting anything when I'm pressurizing it. So that either means that it's really empty, which is a good thing, or that the pickup in the tank isn't quite healthy. You can't exactly see down in the tank because it goes back at such an angle, so we're going to get the old borescope camera. Well, that went unsuccessful. All I could see was a little bit of gelled up gasoline at the bottom and couldn't find the pickup line, so we're just going to assume it's alright. Dump a little bit of fuel in there, slosh it around, and then purge it out and see how much nastiness comes, out of it. Also sprayed some WD-40 down the line to the fuel pump. Hopefully let that sit down there, loosen it up, and get that fuel pump back in action. So we're getting the carbs set up, and as you pull the throttle, I'd say those might be out of sync a little bit. We got the clutches as clean as we're going to get them. Some of that heavy stuff is just going to have to wear out. So the previous owner has ran this thing disturbingly low on oil. We're going to have to top that off before we fire this thing up. And I have just the perfect oil. Some secondhand mystery injection oil that might be Skidoo, might not, might be 10W40. It's going to be perfect for this. Well, all that oil that I topped off the RV reservoir just leaked out into the belly pan. Upon closer inspection, it's missing the hose to the rotary valve reservoir. Well, that's great. Oddly enough, I just happen to have an extra RV hose just sitting in the hose pile. So this is longer than we need, but we may just loop this up and fill it up temporarily with oil. You don't need all the extra reservoir. We'll just have to keep an eye in here. Use this as a sight glass. And there we go. After spilling about another quart of oil into the belly pan, we've got that rigged up. Don't worry, we'll probably come back never and fix it right. I'm slightly disconcerted by the amount of loose wire ends just hanging here, but all we need is spark. Now we should probably hit every grease fitting and check every idler wheel bearing, but we're just going to let it ride for now and see if any problems develop, and then come back and fix it after it's all full of snow. Well, we're going to worry about the cosmetics later and just try and get this thing going because the snow's a-melting and we got to get her riding. Turns out it did need a new fuel tank pickup, so we threw in some secondhand fuel line. And I've also noticed a suspicious lack of a fuel filter, so we're going to have to add one of those too. Price just keeps adding up. Alright, well, we got the fuel system primed. Picked up some compressed air to the vent, got the carbs filled. Don't see any fuel leaking just yet, so that's a good sign. The primer actually works, so we got a couple shots in there. Yeah, maybe I better put the tether on for this one. Alright. Here goes nothing. Ha! Primers make it too easy. That's like the cheat code. Alright, we better take this outside. We're starting to get smoked out here. Let's try this again with a little bit better ventilation. Yeah, it's a bit excessive. Well, we thought that was coolant, but it appears to be partly oil as well. So after, checking the plugs, PTO side is burning, rich, but it's hot. The plug's hot. Mag side's all washed clean and has this weird aluminum-ish sheen on the spark plug. And from the way it pulled over, I'm guessing the head gasket must be shot on this side. Yeah, I don't think that's good. Well, crap. Looks like this thing's not going to be on the snow for a little bit longer. We're going to have to end up scrounging some parts up, and I don't know. Probably not going to find a used piston for this laying around in the pile, but you never know. We'll look. So yeah, this is going to have to be a part 1. We're going to have to come back to this. I'm sure we'll get right back on it. We won't let it sit for days or weeks or months at all. Well, here this is back in the shop, and it's not a year and a half later, so changing things up. Now, we did the right thing and bought a $38 piston before tearing anything apart and basing this out of a lot of assumptions and guesses. So I've been trying to find, a drain port for the antifreeze, and the closest thing there is just a plug down there. Which that is just going to create a huge mess. Man, I'm telling you, this little vacuum can, it's been around for a couple of years, but just recently have I really started using it. It comes in handy. So we got the head off, and no doubt, there's some dings and some damage, but not quite as bad as I was expecting from that bore camera footage. Wow. Yep. Boy, you just gotta love all those random pieces of ring that are just kind of chilling there, waiting to either fall into the bottom end or get snagged on an exhaust or transfer port. Alright, so we got the cylinder pulled off, but you gotta see this. I've never seen that before. Well, that's one way to add a boost port. Man, that's pretty gnarly. Okay, so how did that hole get there? If you look from the inside, it looks like that was punched from the outside and kind of blew that piece into the center there. And I'm guessing that was as the aluminum started building up on the wall and this thing started seizing up even though it was still moving. Eventually a ball of aluminum or something got wadded up in here so bad it punched the hole right into the piston. Now at that point you just had some scuffing wear like that. You can see the locator pin's still there on both rings. Well, that's going to have to go on the trophy shelf. So while we're waiting for the muriatic acid to burn away the aluminum, we started on the restoration of the seat here. And for this we're using Meguiar's Ultra Premium Mirror Glaze Vinyl Seat Restorer and Conditioner. Well, that's bringing things right around. It's almost looking too nice for me to use. I think that might be the most 1980s font I've ever seen. Now this is a perfect opportunity to recycle some of those used gaskets that you got laying around. So luckily the bottom end seems pretty good. I'm sure there was pieces of aluminum that got down through there, and we're going to check and make sure there's nothing sitting in the bottom. Get it cleaned out as much as we can, but hopefully it's good to go after that. Now, we'll probably leave that in there. That's a good luck acorn. Now, one thing that I've noticed over the years on these SPI pistons, maybe they fixed it, but I doubt it, are some of the circlips. And on certain models of sleds, these are a very thick circlip, and they never have the springiness that the OEMs do. So even if you would use a real installer, by the time you compress that C-clip to get it into the piston, it would actually deform and not spring back as much as an OEM. So as long as the OEM style circlip matches the size of the new ones, I always try and reuse the good circlips. Just because it's new doesn't always make it better. So now that that's back together, we just got to fire it up and see what the next thing to break is. Now for the flap, we're coming back to my sad old Centurion, which hasn't ran for too many years. Well, that's another story. But anyways, it's got that fancy Bombardier snow flap. Now I normally wouldn't bother removing that flap from here because it bothers people, and you know, that makes me happy. However, we do have a suitable replacement. This very tacky and outdated Finnish flag, so we're going to swap that on the Centurion because that's more fitting. Oh, I forgot about how many mismatched parts are on the Centurion. Pretty sure that's a Yamaha track. So we had to get the flap re-angled. So for that, we got some billet pine and machined it down to get the angle spacers. Well, that didn't come out too bad at all. Probably needs another going through with some of that rubbing compound to really get, you know, all the oxidation out, but I'm just not that motivated. And by my standards, it looks pretty good. Tell you what, you get a cheap can of black spray paint, touch up some things on here, it'd really be looking snazzy. See if we can get that windshield cleaned up a little bit. That fiberglass cleaner does a decent job even on the windshields. Alright, perfect. Now we're ready to see what breaks next. Might help to turn the fuel on. You know, no,